All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gaura, Shri Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So today is Madhvacharya's appearance day. Was anybody here at class yesterday? Was Ramanuja Acharya spoken about? Tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow, okay. Alright. Thought that they first Ramanuja and then Madhvacharya, but not so close. So this is text 245 from the chapter 9 of Madhya-lila. Madhvacharya stane aila yanha tattvavadi Udipite Krishna deki tahan haila premon madi. Madhvacharya stana aile yanha tattvavadi. Udipite Krishna deki tahan haila premon madi. Madhvacharya stana aile yanha tattvavadi. Udipite Krishna deki tahan haila premon madi. Madhvacharya stane. At the place of Madhvacharya. Aila. Arrived. Yanha. Where? Tattvavadi. Philosophers known as Tattvavadis. Udupite. At the place known as Udupi. Krishna. The deity of Lord Krishna. Deki. Seen. Tahan. There. Haila. Became. Prema unmadi. Mad in ecstasy. Translation. Caitanya Mahaprabhu next arrived at the place of Madhvacharya, where the philosophers known as Tattvavadis resided. He stayed there at a place known as Udupi, where he saw the deity of Lord Krishna and became mad with ecstasy. Please repeat. Caitanya Mahaprabhu next arrived at the place of Madhvacharya, where the philosophers known as Tattvavadis resided. He stayed there at a place known as Udupi, where he saw the deity of Lord Krishna and became mad with ecstasy. There's a purport with all the details about Madhvacharya's life and activities, and that'll be the main part of what I'll speak about, but I'll just read the sequence of verses in the Caitanya Caritamrita describing that visit by Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 246. While at the Udupi monastery, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw dancing Gopal, a most beautiful deity. The deity appeared to Madhvacharya in a dream. Madhvacharya had somehow or other acquired the deity of Krishna from a heap of gopi chandan that had been transported in a boat. Madhvacharya brought this dancing Gopal deity to Udupi and installed him in the temple. To date, the followers of Madhvacharya, known as Tattvavadis, worship this deity. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received great pleasure in seeing this beautiful form of Gopal. For a long time he danced and chanted in ecstatic love. At first sight, the Tattvavadi Vaishnavas considered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a Mayavadi sannyasi. Therefore they did not talk with him. Later, after seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstatic love, they were struck with wonder. Then, considering him a Vaishnava, they gave him a nice reception. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that the Tattvavadis were very proud of their Vaishnavism. He therefore smiled and began to speak to them. Considering them very proud, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began his discussion. The chief Acharya of the Tattvavad community was very learned in the revealed scriptures. Out of humility, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu questioned him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I do not know very well the aim of life and how to achieve it. Please tell me of the best ideal for humanity and how to attain it." The Acharya replied, "When the activities of the 4 castes and the 4 ashrams are dedicated to Krishna, they constitute the best means whereby one can attain the highest goal of life. When one dedicates the duties of Varnashram to Krishna, he is eligible for 5 kinds of liberation. Thus he is transferred to the spiritual world in Vaikuntha. This is the highest goal of life and the verdict of all revealed scriptures." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "According to the verdict of the Shastras, the process of hearing and chanting is the best means to attain loving service to Krishna." Next is a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam. "This process entails hearing, chanting and remembering the holy name, form, pastimes, qualities and entourage of the Lord, offering service according to the time, place and performer, worshipping the deity, offering prayers, always considering oneself the eternal servant of Krishna, making friends with him and dedicating everything unto him. These 9 items of devotional service, when directly offered to Krishna, constitute the highest attainment of life. This is the verdict of revealed scriptures. When one comes to the platform of loving service to Lord Krishna by executing these 9 processes, he has attained the 5th platform of success and the limit of life's goals. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. In every revealed scripture there is condemnation of fruitive activity. It is advised everywhere to give up engagement in fruitive activity, for by it no one can attain the highest goal of life, love of Godhead. Occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A person who does so is considered to be a first-class man. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. Pure devotees reject the 5 kinds of liberation. Indeed, liberation for them is very insignificant because they see it as hellish. Pure devotees always reject the 5 kinds of liberation, which include living in the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, possessing the same opulences possessed by the Supreme Lord, having the same bodily features as the Lord, associating with the Lord and merging into the body of the Lord. The pure devotees do not accept these benedictions without the service of the Lord. It is very difficult to give up material opulence, land, children, society, friends, riches, wife, or the blessings of the goddess of fortune, which are desired even by great demigods. King Bharat did not desire such things, and this was quite befitting his position, because for a pure devotee whose mind is always engaged in the service of the Lord, even liberation or merging into the existence of the Lord is insignificant, and what to speak of material opportunity. A person who is a devotee of Lord Narayan is not afraid of a hellish condition because he considers it the same as elevation to heavenly planets or liberation. The devotees of Lord Narayan are accustomed to seeing all these things on the same level. Both liberation and fruitive activity are rejected by the devotees. You are trying to establish these things as life's goal and the process to attain it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued speaking to the Tattvavad Acharya. Seeing that I am a mendicant in the renounced order of life. You have been playing with me in a duplicitous way. You have not actually described the process and ultimate objective. After hearing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Acharya of the Tattvavad Sampradaya became very ashamed. Upon observing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's rigid faith in Vaishnavism, he was struck with wonder. The Tattvavadi Acharya replied, "What you have said is certainly factual. It is the conclusion of all the revealed scriptures of the Vaishnavas. Still, whatever Madhvacharya has ascertained to be the formula for our party, we practice as a party policy." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Both the fruitive worker and the speculative philosopher are considered non-devotees. We see both elements present in your sampradaya. The only qualification that I see in your sampradaya is that you accept the form of the Lord as truth." Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu broke the pride of the Tattvavadis to pieces. He then went to the holy place known as Falgu Tirtha. So this is the preaching of Lord Chaitanya in the place of the Tattvavadis, the home of Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya is a very significant personality in our sampradaya. The sampradaya, the school that we are a part of. This sampradaya is called the Brahma, Madhva, Gaudiya sampradaya. So the Gaudiya sampradaya refers to the devotees from Bengal. And Brahma is the head. He's the originator of this sampradaya. Madhva is a channel through which this sampradaya is propagated. I was looking for some references to Madhvacharya, and the only reference I could find in our songbook is a song called Sri Guru Parampara by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And there's 10 verses here where he poetically describes the whole parampara. Right at the top, in the second verse, he says, after Krishna, Brahma, Narada and Vyas, after those four personalities, he says, Nrihari Madhava Bamse Aksobhya Paramahamse Sishya Boli Angikara Kare Akshobhyara Shishya Jaya Tirtha Name Parischaya Taradashe Jnana Sindhu Tare. Even in the first verse, it said, Narada Hoite Vyas Madhva Kohe Vyasadas Purna Pragya Padmanama Gati. The great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas, who was empowered to compile the Vedic literatures, became a disciple of Devarshi Narad. Shripad Madhvacharya, the founder of the Suddhadvaita school of Vedanta philosophy, who visited Vyasadeva at Badrik Ashram in the 13th century to learn from him Vedanta philosophy, calls himself a servant of Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. Punapragya Tirtha, which is another name for Madhva, is the guru and sole refuge of Padmanabha Tirtha. And then the disciplic session, the disciples of Madhvacharya are expressed, and that goes through 1, 2, 3, 3 more verses, halfway through the song. The different disciples of Madhva are Nrihari Tirtha, Madhva Tirtha, Akshobhya Tirtha, Jnana Sindhu, Dayanidhi, Vijayanidhi, Rajendra Tirtha, Vidyaraj Tirtha, Vijayadvaj Tirtha, Sri Purushottam Tirtha, Subramanya Tirtha, and his servant was the great Vyasa Tirtha. Vyasa Tirtha's servant was Lakshmi Pati Tirtha, whose disciple was Madhavendra Puri Goswami. And then we have Madhavendra Puri Goswami. Then his disciple was Ishvara Puri, and Ishvara Puri was blessed to be acting as the spiritual master for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Madhvacharya and his line is very prominent before that time. Here, Madhvacharya meets the Tattvavadis and questions them, understands that they are proud about their Vaishnavism, and then explains the ultimate goal, to develop love of Godhead by hearing and chanting. And in the conversation, he describes what the Tattvavadis are still stuck on. That's the Varnashram system, fruitive activity, different kinds of liberation. And the Tattvavadi Acharya, he admitted, what you're saying is correct, but we're following the party line. We're just practicing what our Acharya has taught us. So, the parampara, the guru-disciple succession, is our family line. We can trace the origins of this philosophy, this understanding, this transference of mercy through the Vaishnava system in this way. There is a historical series of events which relates to why Madhvacharya is preaching like this. Madhvacharya appeared after Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya appeared after the time of Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya was active after the time of Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha was present 2,500 years ago. He was active in a time when people's faith in the Vedic texts, the Vedic prescriptions, was distorted. They were engaged in animal sacrifices in the name of the religious process, in the name of the Vedas. So Lord Buddha, he came to reduce, to eliminate the illusion, the suffering that was being created in the name of the Vedas. And he said, give up the Vedas. Give up the Vedas, just have faith in me. And then Buddha, he started to preach the philosophy of voidism. He was kicked out of India, and his teachings went to other parts of the world, and other schools were established. Shankaracharya, he appeared in order to redirect all of the people, redirect their faith back towards the Vedas. But taking it from the point of Buddhism, which is impersonalism, voidism, sunyavad, he had to preach a covered version of the Vedic conclusion. So he preached impersonalism, Mayavad philosophy, monism. And the essential tenet of that is not that everything's zero, but everything's one. We're all one. God and I are one. We have the same qualities as God. In fact, after due course of time, when we realize that we are actually one with God, we can merge into God. So after that time, just as a statement here about how heinous that idea is, Advaitavadis seek to establish that all is one. According to its theories, there is no supreme controller. Ultimate reality is variety-less and formless. Perception of form and diversity is simply illusion. And when this illusion is removed, the soul sheds its temporary individuality and merges into all-pervading truth. Vaishnavas reject these suppositions as inconsistent with logic, common sense, and scriptural conclusions. So they reject them, but in order to wedge the ignorant masses, wedge their understanding out from underneath them, to remove that understanding, then the Vaishnavas, they had to very fiercely oppose the conclusions of the impersonalists. So Ramanujacharya, he's a step further back towards Vaishnavism, and he presented with an emphasis on the oneness, but a slightly difference in quality. Ramanujacharya, he was the next stage. He was just easing them out of that it's all one. He was saying there's oneness, and the detail of his philosophy is that there is oneness in quality with spiritual. The living entities and the Supreme Personality of God are spiritual. And, or again, just to give some encouragement, he presented the idea that the quality of bliss is equally available for the Supreme Personality of God and the living entities. We can become as fully blissful as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was just getting the shift. Madhvacharya, he came along and he just vehemently opposed that idea. He was in opposition to Shankaracharya. They still had a stranglehold. They still have a stranglehold on the philosophy of liberation and self-realization in the world. So he had to vehemently oppose that. And he described that we're never the same in quality of experience as the Supreme Personality of God. We're distinctly different. And he presented a version of the truth which was known as Panchabheda. Panchabheda. 5 different aspects of the truth. Tattva means realist. So the philosophy is a realist philosophy in opposition to the Mayavadi, which is the philosophy of illusion. The Mayavadis say basically that everything is illusion. The Tattvavadis say that although the material world is illusory, it's real. It's just temporary. It's a temporary manifestation. So the material world, let me see if I wrote that down. The 5 aspects of the Panchabheda. There's 5 elements. There's matter. Matter is one element. The relationship between the matter and the soul is another aspect of the truth. The relationship between matter and God, both eternal. Number 4 is relationship between soul and soul. Number 5, the relationship between soul and God. So these are 5 elements of the truth that Madhvacharya was pushing. And you can see, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he then takes it past Panchabheda, he takes it to a Chintya-bheda Bheda Tattva. That there's 2, but then Lord Chaitanya says that we are simultaneously one with the Supreme, but at the same time inconceivably different. So that's the higher synthesis of that philosophy, and the ultimate truth is established there. Lord Chaitanya, he came to visit the Madhvacharya Mutt, and he understood they were proud, so very humbly he asked, "Can you tell me what's going on?" And then the Acharya explained, just in a couple of slokas, our emphasis is on varnashram, fruitive activity, liberation. 5 kinds of liberation. And that's the goal of life. And you can go to Vaikuntha planets. You can live on the same planet as. So Lord Chaitanya, he didn't hold back any punches. He just straight away delivered at the conclusion. Hearing and chanting. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atminivedanam. And he also presented some verses which would break down their attachment to the fruitive activity. It's not possible to engage in karma kanda activities to become liberated from our tendency to try and enjoy. The only way is the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna. That's the only way to achieve any success in this age of Kali. Kalo nasteva 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 gati anyataha. So these are personalities, and Madhvacharya is a very powerful personality. I'll just describe here, this is the purport, his individual characteristics. Prabhupada wrote in the purport, Sripad Madhvacharya took his birth at Udupi, which is situated in the South Kannada district of South India, just west of Sayadri. Sayadri, there's a lovely project, Bhakti Raghava Swami's got there, the Varnashram College. This is the chief city of the South Kannada province and is near the city of Mangalore, which is situated to the south of Udupi. In the city of Udupi is a place called Pajaka Kshetra, where Madhvacharya took his birth in a Shivali Brahmin dynasty. as the son of Madhya-lila Bhatta in the year 1040 Sakabda. There's a little bit of controversy. Some say 1040, some say 1160. He appeared around the year 1238 by the Western calendar, and he was staying on the planet for 79 years. In his childhood, Madhvacharya was known as Vasudev, and there are some wonderful stories surrounding him. It is also said that his father piled up many debts, and Madhvacharya converted tamarind seeds into actual coins to pay them off. Advaitacharya, he once built up a debt of, was it 30 or 300 rupees? 300 rupees. So Mother Sachi, she committed an offence, not understanding, not recognising it, not directly like that. She was concerned that if her son, not Nimai, but Shankaranya, the other son of Mother Sachi, Vishwambara, that's Lord Chaitanya. Vishwarupa, yeah. She was concerned that he was associating too much with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Advaitacharya. He was attracted to him and he would hang out with Advaitacharya. And he eventually took sannyas. So Mother Sachi was upset like that. She didn't want her son to also go off and take sannyas. She was with one son left, so she was so attached to Nimai. So she developed a faulty mentality toward Advaitacharya. Lord Chaitanya, he understood that, and he told her at one stage that you should try and you have to relieve yourself of that offence. Advaitacharya, he's an ecstasy, he's on the ground. Touch his feet. So you can relieve yourself of that mentality. Advaitacharya is not a poor man. 300 rupees was a lot in those days, but he could pay. So Madhvacharya's father also had a debt. Madhvacharya just got some tamarind seeds and converted them into coins and paid off the debt. When he was 5 years old, he was offered the sacred thread, Upanayam. 5 years old, the children in the Gurukul in Mayapur, I think about 5 or 7, they get the Upanayam. And then that's the sacred thread, that's the second birth, that they can then go on the altar and they can help to worship the deities. So Madhvacharya, at 5 years old, he was offered the sacred thread. One demon named Maniman lived near his abode in the form of a snake. At the age of 5, Madhvacharya killed that snake with the toe of his left foot. His feet are pretty amazing, Madhvacharya. It said that later on, his followers were working on translating a scripture, and at night time they were still working, and all the lights went out, the lamps ran out. So with his toes, from his toes emanated a light that enabled the disciples to continue with their work. When his mother was very disturbed, he would appear before her in one jump. These things are a little bit more understood. Apparently, the scholars say that Madhvacharya, once he was more involved in preaching in his philosophy, he revealed in his writings that he was an incarnation of Vayu, a self-proclaimed incarnation of Vayu, the third incarnation of Vayu. So he's in the same category. His brothers are Hanuman and Bhima. Bhima, son of Vayu. When he was a young child, he was in the lap of his mother, Kunti. And once he fell out of her lap, and as he was landing on the ground, his limbs were so hard that they smashed rocks into pieces. And so Madhvacharya is in the same category. Bhima also was known, what's another name for Bhima? Vrikoda. Udara belly. Vrika means wolf. A wolf belly. He had an incredible appetite. So Madhvacharya, he was young and he was hungry. One day they were looking for him, they couldn't find him anywhere. They went into the pantry and there was a big sack of chickpea flour. And they looked around and they saw the sack moving. Madhvacharya had climbed into the sack and he was just eating raw chickpea flour. And he ate a lot of it and digested it. Another time, in Mayapur we had banana trees growing, and a couple of times a year they would ripen. So you'd be left with this bunch of bananas and they become very ripe very quickly. So 160 bananas, like that, we distributed some, but the rest had to be eaten. Madhvacharya, he sat down and he ate the whole 160 bananas in one sitting and digested it. So he had wolf belly as well. And he could appear before his mother in one jump. He uses this skill later on. He was a great scholar even in childhood, and although his father did not agree, he accepted sannyas at the age of 12. I believe Shankaracharya, he accepted sannyas even earlier than that. Shankaracharya, he was an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Madhvacharya, took sannyas at the age of 12. The sannyasi is a fiercely independent position, and so to be able to maintain that and to avoid sense gratification, you have to be very powerful. After receiving sannyas from Achyuta Preksha, he received the name Purna Pragya Tirtha. The Mayavadi sannyasis, they have so many different names for sannyasi, 108 different names, Puri and Tirtha. So he was initiated into the Mayavad Sampradaya and received the name Purna Pragya Tirtha. After travelling all over India, he finally discussed scriptures with Vidya Shankara, the exalted leader of Sringeri Mutt. Sringeri Mutt's down there near Udupi. Vidya Shankara was actually diminished in the presence of Madhvacharya. Accompanied by Satyatirtha, Madhvacharya went to Badrik Ashram. So Satyatirtha and Madhvacharya, Madhvacharya had been studying, and he had some commentaries which he'd written on the Bhagavad Gita, and he also wrote a commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam called Bhagavat Tatparya Nirnaya. So he went up to Badrik Ashram to visit Vyasadeva, and he wanted to discuss his conclusions with Vyasadeva. So they walked up to Badrik Ashram. Even to fly and to drive up there is risky business. We drove up and we had to wait for 10 days at Rishikesh because the roads were what do they call them? Avalanched. There were avalanches over the road. Even we got halfway up, there was an avalanche, but we were able to get over because there was bulldozers pushing the hill off the road. So it was risky business. There are many airplanes or helicopters which fly up there, and they get caught in the winds and they smash into the road. And the roads are so precipitous, the buses which go up there, you look over the side of the cliff and you see buses 5,000 feet below. You go over the cliff, then you're cactus, you're finished. So he walked up there. On his way up, his disciple, his associate, Satyatirtha, they were walking and a tiger attacked Satyatirtha. So Madhvacharya came forward and wrestled with the tiger, barehanded, and trounced him thoroughly. So the tiger went whimpering off with his tail between his legs. Very powerful. Satyatirtha, he was shocked by that, and he decided, I'm not going to go any further. So Madhvacharya said, that's okay, you stay here. And he jumped the remaining distance, which was quite a distance, up to Badrik Ashram. Like Hanuman. Hanuman had one famous jump from the bottom of India across to Lanka. 800 miles. Sri Lanka, which we know now, I'm not sure whether it's the same distance. It's controversy whether that's actually the same place of Ravan's kingdom. So Madhvacharya jumped, and he got up there and he had darshan of Vyasadeva. He met Vyasadeva and explained his commentary on Bhagavad Gita before him. Thus he became a great scholar by studying before Vyasadeva. And actually in the succession we were hearing, there's those four personalities: Krishna, Brahma, Narad, Vyas. So Vyasadeva, he's over 5,000 years old. He's still, you go up to Badrik Ashram and there's a little cave and there's a little murti of Vyasadeva, very austere, grim looking murti. So Vyasadeva is apparently residing in that region still. So that's quite some time before. Madhvacharya appeared in the 12th century. So by him taking that effort to go up and meet Vyas, he diminished that gap, and that he became the next link in the chain of disciplic succession. So he met and he discussed, he became a great scholar. He also claimed because he met the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Vyasa is an incarnation, the literary incarnation of Vishnu, he was personally instructed by him. By the time he came to the Ananda Mutt from Badrik Ashram, Madhvacharya has finished his commentary on Bhagavad Gita. His companion Satyatirtha wrote down the entire commentary. When Madhvacharya returned from Badrik Ashram, he went to Ganjama, which is on the bank of the river Godavari. He met there with two learned scholars named Shobhan Bhatta and Swami Shastri. Later these scholars became known in the disciplic succession of Madhvacharya as Padmanabha Tirtha and Narahari Tirtha. First very prominent disciples. They were scholars. People who are scholars, jnanis, they become very good preachers. They become very good because they have the mental ability, the intelligence to put different thoughts and ideas together and then present them. So these two scholars became his prominent disciples, Padmanabha Tirtha and Narahari Tirtha. There's a lot of information about Madhvacharya written by the son of Padmanabha Tirtha, who was Narayan Pandit Acharya. He wrote a biography called Sri Madhava Vijay. Madhava Vijay. Does anybody know Jaitirtha Charan? He's an older devotee in New Zealand now. So he was initiated many years ago by Jaitirtha, and then his guru left, so he got initiated by Bhagavan. He got the name Nityananda Ram Das. Then he unfortunately had to get initiated again. He took initiation in Australia from Bhavananda, and he got the name Nitai Gosai. Nitai Gosai. When I first joined up, he was one of the head pujaris, and he trained me up how to cook the Raj Bhog. 3 ghee sabjis, what he said. So then after some time, he got initiated again. He got initiated by Jayapataka Swami. Jayapataka Swami gave him the name Jaitirtha, which was the name of his first guru, Jaitirtha Charan. Jaitirtha is the name of one of the disciples of Madhvacharya. And his wife got the name Vedavati. Vedavati is the name of Madhvacharya's mother. Jaitirtha Charan then became a very committed scholar studying Madhvacharya. So it's interesting how the transition of names and then that alignment with the mood of Madhvacharya. So these great jnanis, these great scholars have become convinced by Madhvacharya, and they become his principal disciples. When he returned to Udupi, he would sometimes bathe in the ocean. On such an occasion, he composed one prayer in 5 chapters. Just while taking a bath, he makes 5 chapters of verses, poetic. He composed very poetic presentations of the Mahabharata. He has 37 major philosophical works. 13 were bhashyas, commentaries on the Upanishads. He commented on the Rig Veda, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he made a poetic presentation of the Mahabharata. And then while he was preaching very actively, maybe that comes up later, he wrote essays which defeated the philosophy of 21 different ancient scholars. This is the effort he had to put in to dismantle the stranglehold of the Mayavadis. He was very tall, very powerful, born in a Brahmin family. An incarnation of Lord Vayu. Once, while sitting beside the sea, engrossed in meditation upon Lord Sri Krishna, he saw that a large boat containing goods for Dwarka was in danger. He gave some signs by which the boat could approach the shore, and it was saved. The owners of the boat wanted to give him a present, and at that time Madhvacharya agreed to take some Gopi Chandan. Just took a lump of clay. He received a big lump of Gopi Chandan. The merchants, they used to, when they would travel in their boats, and in order for the boat to have ballast so it wouldn't get tossed and turned they would put big lumps of Gopi Chandan or rocks. So this big lump of Gopi Chandan was there, and Madhvacharya, he picked it out. That's what he wanted. As it was being brought to him, it broke apart and revealed a large deity of Lord Krishna. The deity became encased in that Chandan. The deity had a stick in one hand and a lump of food in the other. As soon as Madhvacharya received the deity of Krishna in this way, he composed a prayer. The deity was so heavy that not even 30 people could raise it. Madhvacharya personally brought this deity to Udupi. Madhvacharya had 8 disciples, all of whom took sannyas from him and became directors of his 8 monasteries. In the area of Udupi, he set up 8 different centres, and they had a head. One of his principal disciples was the head of that monastery. Just like we've got a temple here, there's another temple downtown. You can have many, many different places where the teaching can be disseminated. Worship of the Lord Krishna deity is still going on at Udupi, according to the plans Madhvacharya established. So he's a very strong acharya. Very strong acharya. Madhvacharya then for the second time visited Badrik Ashram. While he was passing through Maharashtra, the local king was digging a big lake for the public benefit. As Madhvacharya passed through that area with his disciples, he was also obliged to help in the excavation. The king would just, recruit workers willy-nilly. So Madhvacharya came through, he was powerful, okay, you can work. After some time, when Madhvacharya visited the king, he engaged the king in that work and departed with his disciples. So he had such profound influence on other people that he got the king to get down from his throne and to actually take over the work and enable him to continue because his work was much more valuable. Often in the province of Ganga Pradesh, there were fights between Hindus and Mohammedans. The Hindus were on one bank of the river and the Mohammedans on the other. Due to the community tension, no boat was available for crossing the river. The Mohammedan soldiers were always stopping passengers on the other side, but Madhvacharya did not care for these soldiers. He crossed the river anyway, and when he met the soldiers on the other side, he was brought before the king. There's one instance, it might not be this one, that he apparently crossed over the Ganges with no boat. But when he got to the other side, his clothes were all dry, so he probably walked across. So he went before the king. The Mohammedan king was so pleased with him that he wanted to give him a kingdom and some money. But Madhvacharya refused. While walking on the road, so pleased, he wanted to give him half his kingdom. He was so pleased with him. Such a powerful personality. Let me try and glorify you and support you and benedict you. And Madhvacharya didn't need it. While walking on the road, he was attacked by some dacoits. But by his bodily strength he killed them all. When his companion Satyatirtha was attacked by a tiger, Madhvacharya separated them by virtue of his great strength. The Kshatriyas If you go to Jaipur, you can go to the kingdom there, and the Kshatriya weapons are there. And Kshatriyas in previous ages, they were much bigger. There are swords that, 2 metres. And they could pick up the sword, and they used to take the sword and they'd go out into the forest. The tigers, Bengal tigers, they're about 15 to 18 feet long. They're massive. So they would take their weapons and just with their bare hands, they would kill the tiger. We'd need 4 hands to pick up one of these swords, but they would then just... So the Kshatriyas, they had that power. When he met Vyasadeva, he received from him the Shalagram Shila known as Ashtamurti. After this, he summarized the Mahabharata. Madhvacharya's devotion to the Lord and his erudite scholarship are known throughout India. Because of this, the owners of the Sringeri Mutt established by Shankaracharya became a little perturbed. At that time, the followers of Shankaracharya were afraid of Madhvacharya's rising power, and they began to tease Madhvacharya's disciples in many ways. Because they were frightened, they would taunt, they would try and get under their skin. There was even an attempt to prove that the disciplic succession of Madhvacharya was not in line with Vedic principles. One person named Pundarik Puri, a follower of the Mayavad philosophy of Shankaracharya, came before Madhvacharya to discuss the Shastras. It is said that all of Madhvacharya's books were taken away, but later they were found with the help of King Jai Simha, ruler of Kumla. In discussion, Pundarik Puri was defeated by Madhvacharya. Same thing happened with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He would be called to establish the validity of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, and the people who were challenged would say, "You don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So, or you can tell us, you can explain to us, but you can't talk from the Srimad Bhagavatam, you can't speak from any of these other literatures." So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "Okay, I'll just preach from the Upanishads." And just through the Upanishads, he was able to establish the conclusion of the Chintabheda Bheda Tattva. And so they had to accept that they were philosophically well established, that they could understand what he was saying. And so they gave up their envious attitude. Well, they didn't give it up, they didn't push that line anymore. He was too powerful. A great personality named Trivikramacharya, who was a resident of Vishnu Mangala, became Madhvacharya's disciple, and on his son later became Narayanacharya, the composer of the Sri Madhva Vijaya. After the death of Trivikramacharya, the younger brother of Narayanacharya took sannyas and later became known as Vishnu Tirtha. At that time, it was reputed that there was no limit to the bodily strength of Purna Pragya, Madhvacharya. There was a person named Kadanjari who was famed for possessing the strength of 30 men. 30 men. Bhimashen, he had the strength of 10,000 elephants. So 30 men, it's not much. Madhvacharya placed the big toe of his foot upon the ground and asked the man to separate it from the ground. But the great strong man could not do so, even after great effort. Hanuman, he met Bhima. He was up in the Himalayas. Bhima was trying to jump up, right up into the heavenly planets. And as he came along, there was this big trunk of a tree or something across the path, and he couldn't move it. And then he looked and he saw it was the tail of a monkey, and it was Hanuman's tail. So he challenged him, "Hey monkey, move out of the way." And Hanuman said, "Well, if you can move my tail, I'll move out of the way." And he tried and he couldn't. Then he realised, actually, he must be my brother. He must be related to me, having that strength of iron. Srila Madhvacharya passed from this material world at the age of 80 while writing a commentary on the Aitareya Upanishad. For further information about Madhvacharya, one should read Madhva Vijaya. And then there's the list of all of the Mutt commanders, and that comes down even to the present age. Udupi is still very active. They have lots of different principles set up by Madhvacharya, and they feed daily between 15 and 20,000 students. And on festival days, they can feed up to 80,000 students. So their Food for Life program is very, very structured, very developed. To date, in the Udupi monastery, there are another 14 Madhva Tirtha sannyasis. As stated, Udupi is situated in South Kannada, about 36 miles north of Mangalore. It is situated beside the sea. Prabhupada says this information is available from the South Kannada Manual and the Bombay Gazette. So Prabhupada did his research there and presented all this information about Madhvacharya. One of the scholars said that he was very salutary in his preaching, but it wasn't so extensive. This is a scholar's consideration. But he was very significant. He established a very powerful opposition. And Lord Chaitanya, he followed in the same thing. He was opposed to the Mayavadis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the essence of the philosophies of the four great Vaishnavacharyas, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbaka, and adopted two major specialties from each of them. From Madhva, he accepted complete defeat of Mayavad philosophy. Just wipe them out. And recognition of the deity form of Krishna as an eternal spiritual being. Like he said, Lord Chaitanya said in that conversation, you worship Krishna as a deity, that's good, but your philosophy is not to the point. From Ramanuja, he incorporated the concept of bhakti, unpolluted by karma and jnana, and the importance of service to devotees. From Vishnu Swami's teachings, he adopted the sentiment of exclusive dependence on Krishna and the path of raga bhakti. And from Nimbaka, he accepted the need to take shelter of Radha and high esteem for the gopis' love for Krishna. I didn't get to talk at all about the Dvaita Dvaita and the Vashishta Dvaita and the Sudha Dvaita and the different schools of Vaishnava philosophy. But Madhvacharya's, one of his famous quotes is about two. Reality is twofold, independent and dependent things. The Lord Vishnu is the only independent thing. The reality is there are dependent and independent things. And Lord Vishnu is the only independent. So, pretty late. Anybody have any realizations or any thoughts, memories of?
I just wondering this morning that the wind was quite extraordinary this morning. That all makes sense now.
Yeah, quite. There was once a test. The demigods wanted to see who was the most powerful. The wind god and the sun god were matching up. So there's this person who had a coat on, and the wind god Vayu said, "I'll get him to take it off." And he started blowing really, really hard, blowing, and the man was just holding on tighter and tighter and tighter. So more powerful than the wind. The sun, he came, I'll get him to take it off easily. He just came and shined on him and made him feel warm, and after a while he took his coat off. So the power of the wind god, Vata constitution, very powerful, mind affected by Vata. But more powerful than that is the sun god, and most powerful is Krishna. Vayu is a great assistant in the whole procedure. And there's that verse, more difficult to control than controlling the wind, the mind. And the way we control the mind is to place our mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. The Madhvacharya has helped us in that. He's helped to break the stranglehold of the Mayavadis. So we should become powerful followers of Lord Chaitanya, fixed in the philosophy, understanding what are the opposition, what are the niggling little angles that the people who have not surrendered use in order to establish their particular grasp on the truth. But it's not real, it's not eternal, it's not common sense, it's not logical, as Lord Chaitanya said. Srimad Madhvacharya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.